welcome back to Sharing the Love. Today we're sharing the love with the wonderful Damien. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here. I'm so grateful and excited. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited for this episode. Could you describe yourself with 5 words?
Integral, loving, passionate, curious, empathetic.
Out of those 5 words, which one speaks to you the loudest in the current phase that you're in?
I'd say passionate. I'm just relentless at the moment in what I want.
Alrighty, it's time for our love bowl. You know the drill.
Awesome.
Yes, just
Yes.
stop whenever you're ready.
Stop.
Alrighty. The topic for today is intuition.
Wow.
What's the first thought that comes to mind when you think of intuition?
Weirdly enough, it was going to be when you said what are the 5 things, I was going to say intuition, because spiritually for me, intuition is something that is, one of my values in regards to how I move through life. And when we talk about, listening to your heart and getting out of the head and getting into the heart, intuition for me and that gut feeling is something that's always been there for me. So it's interesting.
I just read a quote recently that said, the longest and most rewarding journey you'll ever take are the 18 inches from your head to your heart. And that's so beautiful to hear you say that, because I do feel, especially for people like both you and I who have been on our healing journeys for quite some time, this is essentially the work that we have been doing, is reconnecting back into our intuition, letting go of the conditioning, of the limiting beliefs, of all of the things that were no longer aligned with us or were never truly aligned with us, and coming back into alignment and coherence of mind, body, heart, spirit, soul, gut, all of it. What is the difference between someone who is in touch with their intuition and someone who isn't?
I think the first thing comes to mind is the voice that we hear. And I think it's the difference between trusting the voice and knowing which voice you're listening to. We live in a society where quite a number of people do live through the lens of the voice that they hear mostly, which is not always an intuition or from higher self. In my experience, that voice has been not always the most positive voice that I could possibly listen to. So as far as the intuition goes, my belief is that intuition is obviously just from that higher self, and that intuition, I guess if we're talking about the difference would be someone who is listening to that voice that they know is not coming from ego or not coming from a place of fear or trying to keep us safe, more from a voice of like true authenticity, from a place of self-belief and trust and knowing. You've also got to know what that voice is and be familiar with it and to be with it and to nurture it and to love it and to understand that that's the voice we need to listen to more so, and that's the voice you need to make decisions from. And someone who maybe not hearing that voice clearly, you would be in a situation where you're listening more to that ego voice and the voice that hasn't been nurtured into our own authentic voice. You just have to know there's 2 voices.
Definitely. The word that stood out to me was trust.
Yeah.
And when I look at the difference between someone in touch with their intuition and someone who isn't, it comes down to, as you said, what you have nurtured. One thing I was just talking to my friend about recently is, for the most part of my life, I always felt the intuition as a really low voice. And the ego was so high, that voice was so high.
Yeah.
What I've done in my healing journey is that now I've started to make the voice of my intuition louder and the voice of the ego lower. But that comes with practice. And a lot of what you were saying is the intention behind it and the proactive approach that you are taking towards that. When we look at what that results in as a byproduct of, say, someone who is not in touch with their intuition, not only is it misalignment, but it's also how they're presenting themselves is so inauthentic that they don't feel good with themselves, that they don't feel comfortable. Although, and this is the paradox that I see, is that the ego is trying to keep them comfortable. And that's something that I always think about, is people are so uncomfortable, but this is the comfort for them. And that's why now I start to realize it's like, it truly is about choosing your heart. It's hard to do the healing work, and it's hard to stay wherever you're at. Both are hard. Choose your heart.
Yeah, and it's probably a bit off the topic of intuition, but like, the comfortability, this is another thing. Most of the time, if you're in that ego mind voice, the comfortability is not like, oh, I like this. Most people say, I hate this situation, or I don't like this, what I'm in. But that familiarity and that comfort, even though it's uncomfortable realistically, it's like, I don't want to be here, but the comfortability on the nervous system is what keeps them there.
Yes, and the comfort as well, to add to that, is I feel a lot of points in my life I felt the friction because deep down I know what I'm meant to be doing. But because it's so uncomfortable to confront that intuition, and I believe 9 times out of 10 your intuition is correct. It's a divine, it's connected to a divine thing. I do believe it's part of our soul. It is that higher self that you're talking about. But because it's uncomfortable to face that, yes, that's the decision that I need to make. So it's easier to say, you know what, fuck it, let me just stay on that. You know?
Yeah. And every part of your body's going, no, 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 no.
Yeah. My next question is, how do you tap into your intuition?
The first thing that comes to mind, I would say, would be catching myself and witnessing myself and being present. So if I want to do it deliberately, meaning like right now I want to tap into what I know is true for me, I would, take some space, sit and I'm a breathwork instructor, so for me to do a bit of breathwork maybe, just to be present with my body and what's happening around me and get real present with what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Then witness myself and understand, okay, this is something now I need to really tune into my higher self and the part of me that I know is the most true for me, and separate that monkey mind, the ego mind, whatever you want to call it. And I just listen. And I wait till I get that full body, fuck yes. That is also difficult. It comes from repetition as well. I think it's not something you can just do one day and it's there. I'm doing this that long, that voice, like I said, the nurturing has created that strength and that knowing. Also feel if we're unconsciously doing it and just in the moment doing it, it's that first reaction. It's that initial without thinking, without going, and all the judgment, all the parts of us that go, should I, shouldn't I, and all the fear and all that shit. I basically just go, whatever's that first initial visual reaction, it's like yes or no. And that's what I would listen to.
First, I really love, and I want to re-emphasize the part where you talk about space. In whatever shape, way, form that looks like, it's creating space. So for me, one thing I used to do for many years is the impulsive decisions, and like right now I need to make it. But I realized just sleep on it. My friend told me this advice once and I tried it once and I'll do it for the rest of my life. Just sleep on it. That space. Meditate. That space. Sit with yourself. That space. Whatever that space looks like, give yourself that. And introspection, obviously, with that. The other part is, as you were talking and you were saying, I obviously trained myself and, you're at a place now because you've been doing it for quite a while. It does require a lot of training. And for people who have not embarked on this journey, this is where compassion needs to come in and to realize this is something very new. I say this in every episode, that all of these different things, we're reprogramming our minds. We're starting, again, as I was telling you, I started to make that voice, the intuition voice, higher and the ego lower. But this didn't happen over a week or 2 weeks. And it's still I'm learning and still I'm training. But what are we training is the conditioning. We're learning to peel the layers of dust and the things that we were taught that are not truly what we believe in. And for us to go, as you were saying, from the mind to the heart space, the soul, the gut, right? This is where I say it lives in our core. Yeah. Where there's balance. It takes some time. And it takes that acceptance. Coming back to our topic, and I know this is something we're very big on, is accepting that a lot of things we believe in might be bullshit.
Yeah, that just instantly in my body just made me think about the conditioning and the beliefs and the pattern. Like I said to a client the other day, I was struggling with moving forward with something. I said, well, how long has it taken you to get to here with what you've been doing? He's like, oh, maybe 20 years. I'm like, yeah, well, it's taken 20 years for you to be in this pattern, this habit. This is not going to change overnight. The rewiring takes time. The training of the new thoughts, the new habits, all this stuff, and it just made me think down about how important that is, and the compassion as well. 100% to be with what comes up. Whether it's like I want this to change, but it's not happening. It's like, well, it's happening. It just needs to be rewired. It needs to be repatterned. It needs to be reprogrammed.
Also, to that point, I look at all these different parts of us: emotions, thoughts, the intuition, everything. Think of it as a human. If for 20 years you've been telling your intuition, as we were saying just before, that I don't want to listen to it, and you've been telling it basically, fuck you, then of course, when now you're ready to come and listen to it, it's not going to be like, okay, let's go, let's do it. It needs to trust you. It needs some time to see that you're actually serious about making this change. And that's where also not the compassion for ourselves, but managing the expectations. My next question is, what role does intuition play in aligning with your truth?
Well, that's the essence. If I'm honest, like just before when we're talking about, nurturing that, for me, that's something that I do spend so much time on nurturing that part of myself, because I feel like if I can come from that space, everything that I know is true to me and that I'm working towards and I desire, then everything that I believe I'm capable of will happen. When I say relentless at the start of this conversation, it's like that's what I'm relentless about. I'm relentless about being true to what I know I'm capable of, my power, what I'm here to do. That there's been so many times I've looked back and think, that I haven't been in alignment with certain things. And the more that I am in alignment with this intuition, what I feel I know is true, there's definitely some other things that happen, like, in regards to procrastination and perfectionism that all come up, but I'm aware of that. Like I said, I witnessed that part of myself. I know these are blocks that are within me from the conditioning, my childhood, etc. But that I can handle because I know that that's the work that I'm doing. I use this in ACT therapy, where it's like we talk about away moves and towards moves, and it's like basically two arrows, one going this way, one going that way. And I consistently ask myself, as far as values go, because that's obviously the truest part of my authentic part of me, anything I do, I'm like, is this taking me away from where I want to be or towards where I want to be? And that's something I consistently do in regards to setting boundaries, in regards to making decisions. So, yeah, massive part of everything that I think and feel and do. And I would love to be in a space where everything I do is from that space, because I know that when I'm there, I have visualizations and I see myself, and there's a truth there that I know that when I'm there, I know that I'm going to be my most happiest and truest authentic self. So
I love it. And the essence of everything that you said is that the role of intuition in aligning with that truth is freedom. Truly, the best feeling in the world is being so aligned with your truth, and this is what I want, and this is my purpose, and this is how I'm gonna do it, and I don't give two shits about what they say is the right way to do it, or this is how it's meant to be. And it's like, we're all so different, and we're trying to fit in the system of a one size fits all, but that's, how could it be? How could it be that we fit in this one system? And I guess that's where the whole blocking us from intuition comes from. Because if we are in touch with our intuition, and I mean that on a global level, the powers that be won't be playing their puppet show, let's say, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. Consumerism, capitalism, all of that, they feed on us not being in line with our intuition. Because
100%.
when we step into that truth, into our beingness, into our interconnectedness, we're no longer looking at individual success. We're no longer looking at competition, comparison. Yeah. That doesn't exist in the realm of judgment, in the realm of our truth. If intuition was a color, what color would it be and why?
For me, it's purpley indigo, and I feel that's just based on the colours I see in my visualizations, meditations, and I'm doing breath work. And there's the other concept of, like, if you're into chakras, those colours are quite significant, but for me, that's the colours that naturally come to me in that space. I think of that and that truest part of me and that connectedness to the creator. I feel purple for sure.
Wow.
For sure.
Wow. One, purple is my favorite color. Two, I actually see purple in my visualizations and meditations, but I didn't know that underlying meaning or deeper meaning to it. And three, there's something royal about purple. And when I think about the divine, that's the highest royalty that we can kind of dream to attain. So that was what a beautiful answer. Wow. My last question on today's topic is, what's one advice that you could give our audience on helping them tap into their intuition?
Finding that space. I mean, we talked about space before, but I think find that space to connect deeper. And the other thing is, I think that a lot of the times, and this is through some of the most challenging times I've been through, where I've sat with myself and tried to be in this space, and then all the uncomfortability had come up around certain things, and I think we get scared if something comes up and it's like, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to be with this. I think it can block us from really listening to what's happening in the body and the mind. If you are continuously feeling like, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to experience this right now, and we jump out of that, and that is, for whatever reason, our body and our mind telling us what is actually up. For example, I had a significant physical stuff happening recently, and there was a point where I knew there was pain in my body, but I wasn't really listening. After sitting with myself on this particular time, there was a really beautiful connection with myself and my body, where I was like, I just started talking to myself, saying, I'm so sorry I haven't been listening. I'm so sorry that I haven't felt you enough to understand what you're trying to tell me. So I'm using that example in the way that, like, it can be something physical, it can be something mentally as well. Like, I'm hearing, that the ego voice telling me certain things, and I don't want to listen to that because it's negative or whatever it may be. If we witness that part of ourselves, we can tune into that intuition more, rather than just going, no, I'm not going in there. To be with it and to understand it, that's the nurturing of, like, well, I'm feeling this and I'm not going to run away from it. I'm thinking this, I'm not going to run away from it. Is that true? And start asking the questions and dropping into that deeper space of, like, when I'm witnessing myself, I know that that is not true. And then you start dropping into the space of, like, hearing a more authentic self. And it's more just about decluttering all those things that are coming through and just getting to that real sense of what is the intuition and what is that truth. And it can be quite uncomfortable. Like, that's the work, yeah? But once you declutter all that and get through that and understand why you're feeling certain things or why you're thinking certain things, and you do that work and you're listening more to that voice, and that, like you said, you turn the dial up on the intuition voice, continually rewire that part of ourselves and listen to that and be with that, be compassionate to it, empathetic to it. The more you can be with that part of you, the trust, belief and knowing is just obviously just grows and grows and grows and gets stronger. People are so busy with everything that they don't even have the time to sit with themselves to even nurture it. It's about really making that conscious, like you said, intention of, like, I want to be closer to myself, and I want to understand myself better. I want to listen to myself and that truest part of myself, and be also willing to listen to the parts that are not so beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow, that was quite value-packed. So if I were to just take a step back and draw a map of the process, we'll say intention, space, awareness, compassion, and honesty, aligned and inspired action, repeat. And the most important part of this process is the repeat, because the way that we retain, and how you were saying the trust grows and the nurturing and all of that comes from the repetition. Just keep on repeating, because that's how we retain. Constant exposure, constant retention. And over time, you get to a place where it's so natural. What was your biggest takeaway from our conversation today?
I feel proud, I think, about the time that I have put into nurturing that part of myself. The takeaway is definitely that how connected I am to that part of me, that voice, that knowing. And that there's no book for that. There's no book to say, look, hey, this is who you should be and this is the real you. I found a part of myself that can only be found when there's nothing else left to find.
Wow. And I just want to clarify on one thing. All the work that you've done, and huge congratulations, because that is honestly the hardest work I believe we could ever do in this life, right? But I do also want to help those that are watching with some compassion, to see that even you struggled last week, as you were saying, or, a few weeks ago, with still kind of learning and still training, and that we still get caught up in the world and the distractions that are around us. So it does require that constant cycle, again, to keep going through it. And the more that you do it, you get to a place where you're proud of yourself. And I don't think we'll ever get to a place to say, like, I'm 100% there. I don't think so. Right?
No,
As
liars.
Exactly. Where can our audience connect with you?
Literally doing a new website and new pages. As soon as that's done, I'll get that to you and we can check on the comments and everyone will know. So that'd be great to connect with everyone.
Definitely. And yes, please, whoever sees this episode today, do connect with this incredible man. Thank you so much for joining. It has been an honor and a pleasure. This is Sharing the Love. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe, do the whole shebang. Let us know what resonated with you, and we'll see you again in another episode.